They used to say she wasted her potential. What hidden strength could turn their scorn upside down? They used to look past her like she was invisible. They never saw her as a real soldier, but they had no idea what she had already survived. And when the president spoke her name, the entire room fell silent, including the family who once called her a disappointment. Before we dive in, where are you listening from right now? Drop it in the comments. Welcome to Graceful Valor Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. Claire Donnelly was born into a world where success wore a lab coat or a tailored suit. In the Donnelly household of West Hartford, Connecticut, excellence wasn't optional. It was expected. Her father, Dr. Stephen Donnelly, chaired the economics department at a prestigious university. Her mother, Dr. Elaine Donnelly, was a biochemistry researcher whose name often appeared in medical journals. They held court at dinner parties full of professors, deans, and visiting scholars, all speaking the same fluent dialect of achievement. Claire's older brother, Nathan, had been groomed for greatness since birth, and he never missed a mark. He graduated top of his class, aced the LSAT, and was hired straight into a top law firm in Manhattan. The family spoke of him with reverence, almost as if he were a legacy already secured in bronze. Claire, on the other hand, was always a quieter puzzle. From the outside, she had every advantage: good schools, summer programs, test prep tutors. But something about her spirit didn't fall neatly into the lanes her family had painted. They tried to engineer her path anyway. By the time she was 9, her bedroom walls looked more like a science fair than a child's room. Periodic tables, anatomy diagrams, framed certificates from STEM camps. Her parents didn't call it pressure, they called it planning. But in the middle of that structured childhood, something slipped through the cracks. Claire's grandfather, her father's father, lived with them for a few years before he passed. He was quiet, observant, and every so often, when no one else was around, he'd speak in a different tone, lower, rougher, like the voice of another life. He had been a combat medic in World War II. No one else in the family ever mentioned it. They preferred to talk about his decades as a hospital administrator, the research he published after the war. But Claire leaned into his stories, not the ones about policy or data, but the ones he only whispered, dragging wounded men through mud under gunfire, about patching lungs with torn shirts and steady hands. "I didn't save the world in a lab," he once told her, eyes locked on something far away. "I saved it one soldier at a time, right there in the dirt." He showed her his old medic badge just once. She never forgot the way he held it, like it weighed more than it looked. Could her grandfather's legacy ignite her true calling? In high school, Claire did fine, but never exceptional by her family standards. A mix of A's and B's. A natural athlete, she stood out on the swim team and in track meets. But medals on a field didn't mean much in the Donnelly house unless they came with a GPA. When SAT season came, Claire gave it her best. Her scores were solid, strong enough for good state schools, but not the Ivy League gates her parents had always envisioned. Her mother tried to hide her disappointment behind phrases like, "We'll make it work, and maybe you'll transfer." But the message was clear. Nathan had scored perfectly. Nathan had choices. Claire had limitations. During spring of her senior year, an Army recruiter visited her high school. Most students barely glanced at the table. Claire didn't just glance, she stopped. The recruiter was a woman in uniform named Sergeant Rachel Vega. She didn't talk like the others. She didn't lead with benefits or tuition credits. She talked about purpose, about medicine in combat zones, about being the difference between life and death when it mattered most. That conversation stayed with Claire. It echoed louder than any acceptance letter. She enrolled at a state university that fall, attending classes she didn't care about. One semester in, the quiet sense of dread she carried since high school turned to clarity. She wasn't going to medical school. She wasn't following the family plan. She was enlisting. She told her parents over dinner. The silence hit first. Then her father laughed once, short and bitter. "The military," he repeated, like a punchline. "Is that what you think of yourself, Claire? That you couldn't make it anywhere else?" Her mother pressed her hands to her face. "We gave you everything," she whispered like it was a crime. But it was Nathan's reaction that cut deepest. He actually laughed out loud. "Playing soldier, Claire. Come on. You really think they'll hand you a rifle and send you to save lives? You'll be doing clerical work in an office somewhere, filing paperwork in camo. I'm going to be a combat medic," she said quietly. Her voice trembled, but she didn't take it back. "Your grandfather became something real after the war," her father said flatly. "He didn't waste his potential." That night, Claire sat on her childhood bed, enlistment papers in one hand and her half-hearted college plan in the other. In the morning, she made her choice. 2 weeks later, she was on a bus to basic training. Their disappointment trailed her like a scent she couldn't wash off. Basic was brutal, but it didn't break her. If anything, it chipped away at something else, the weight of comparison. For the first time in her life, no one cared who her family was. Drill sergeants didn't ask about test scores or AP classes. They cared if she could lift, run, carry, endure. Claire rose through it all. Her performance earned quiet nods from the instructors. One even told her during field training, "You've got the hands and the head for this work, but more important, you've got the heart." She believed him. When she came home for Christmas, she wore her uniform with pride. Her posture had changed. Her eyes had seen hard things and chosen to keep going. Her family didn't notice. Her mother, passing her in the kitchen, said, "So, when will this little phase be over?" Nathan smirked from the couch. "The uniform's cute," he said, "but let's be real. You're handing out ibuprofen at some clinic, right?" They asked no questions, showed no curiosity. Her father steered every conversation back to Nathan's firm, Nathan's cases, Nathan's world. By the time she returned to base, she knew they would never understand the value in what she was becoming. Could her courage in combat finally silence their doubts? Her medical training grew harder, deeper. She learned to insert IVs while wearing full chemical gear, how to assess wounds while bullets screamed in the background. Mistakes weren't options. They were the difference between life and death, and Claire was good, unshakably good. Her hands stayed steady under pressure. Her mind mapped protocols faster than most. Her shooting scores reached expert level. Her fitness ranked in the top percentile. She wasn't chasing Nathan anymore. She wasn't even in the same race, but none of it mattered at home. When she called to share that she'd been assigned to the 10th Mountain Division and would be deploying to Afghanistan, her mother said, "Well, that was bound to happen with your career path." Her father added, "Just keep your head down. No heroics. No be safe. No we're proud of you. No care packages arrived. No letters. Other soldiers opened mail from wives, sisters, uncles, parents. Claire learned to stop checking the pile. Instead, she found family in her unit. Real family. The kind that stayed up on watch beside you. The kind that shared hot sauce packets from MREs and laughed at things that weren't really funny. The kind that knew what it meant when someone went quiet for too long. Her squad leader, Sergeant Mia Jordan, was the first mentor Claire had ever truly trusted. Tough but fair, hard as steel, and just as solid, Jordan once said, "You've got it, Donnelly, not just the skill, you've got the fire. That thing that won't let you quit." 3 months into deployment, that fire would be tested, and it would show them all exactly who Claire Donnelly had become. But back home in that pristine house, With gleaming floors and framed diplomas, the story still hadn't reached them. To them, she was just the girl who didn't get into Yale, the one who chose boots over books, the disappointment. And so far, they weren't wrong. Not yet. Combat medic training was never meant to be gentle. Claire knew that going in, but nothing could have prepared her for the full intensity. They trained in fire simulation rooms with smoke and strobe lights, screaming instructors and blood-covered dummies. She learned to tourniquet femoral bleed in complete darkness, to start an IV while riding in a moving Humvee, to triage under simulated mortar fire. The instructors didn't sugarcoat it. "You don't get do-overs out there." One barked, "You screw up once, someone dies." Claire didn't screw up. She didn't just memorize procedures. She embodied them. Her hands moved with mechanical speed, but her judgment stayed human, calm, focused, unshaken by panic. By the end of her training, she ranked among the top of her class. Quietly, instructors began using her as the model during drills. Newer recruits watched her without knowing why, only that she seemed different. When she received her deployment orders for Afghanistan, Claire wasn't afraid. She was ready. Before shipping out, she made one last call home. It felt like obligation more than connection. "We're heading into a rough area," she said. "I just wanted to—" "Don't play hero," her father interrupted. "The real heroes are the ones who come home and do something meaningful with their lives." Her mother said something about emailing pictures from Nathan's engagement party. Claire hung up without replying. In Afghanistan, the contrast hit her hard. Where her family offered distance, her unit offered something deeper: loyalty, shared purpose. They slept in dusty tents, rotated night shifts on perimeter guard, and made jokes during chow to keep the anxiety at bay. Claire learned her teammates' quirks, their fears, their tells. She became their medic, but also their anchor. Sergeant Mia Jordan remained her compass, demanding as ever, but always fair, always watching, always willing to put her own body between the squad and danger. 3 months in, it happened. Their convoy was ambushed. An IED ripped through the lead vehicle, flipping it like a toy and spewing black smoke into the desert sky. Claire felt the shockwave vibrate her bones. She didn't wait. She sprinted into the chaos. Staff Sergeant Marcus Hale was trapped in the wreckage, blood gushing from his thigh. Claire ducked through the twisted frame, pulled him out inch by inch, her medical kit pressed to her chest. Gunfire cracked overhead. She didn't flinch. His femoral artery was hit. He had minutes, maybe less. Claire applied pressure, wrapped the tourniquet, started fluids. Her hands worked while her voice kept him grounded. "Stay with me, Marcus. Eyes on me." The medevac arrived 14 minutes later. He was still alive when they lifted off. Afterward, Captain Jared Collins pulled her aside. "You've got ice in your veins, Donnelly," he told her. "He'd be gone without you." Word traveled fast. She received a commendation medal with a V device for valor. She called home that night, still buzzing from the adrenaline. "That's nice, dear," her mother said. "Did you hear Nathan made junior partner? They're flying him out to Chicago for some merger." It wasn't even disappointment anymore. It was detachment. Still, Claire pressed on. She treated everything from gunshot wounds to heat stroke to shrapnel injuries. Infantry soldiers, often skeptical of medics, started asking for her by name. When the unit's cook collapsed during a heat wave, it was Claire who diagnosed early-stage rhabdomyolysis and saved his kidneys. When a rookie panicked during live fire and shot himself in the foot, she stabilized him before he bled out. Her evaluations became glowing, displays medical excellence under extreme conditions. One commander wrote, "Exemplifies leadership beyond her years." She was promoted to sergeant 6 months ahead of schedule. But back home, Her story remained invisible. When Nathan graduated law school, her parents threw a lavish celebration. They insisted Claire fly home during her mid-deployment leave to attend. She arrived in dress uniform. No one asked about it. Relatives buzzed around Nathan, drinking wine and praising his career trajectory. Claire stood in the corner near the window, unsure why she'd come. When her uncle asked what she was doing these days, her father quickly interjected. "Claire's doing fine," he said. "Something with medical logistics in the Army. But today's about Nathan." Of course. Did you know he graduated third in his class? Later, her mother gestured to the ribbons on her chest. "What are those colorful things for? Training exercises?" Claire kept her tone even. "That's my combat medical badge, and that one's for valor under fire." Her mother nodded absently. "Oh, well, have you met Cousin Allison?" She just finished her residency at Johns Hopkins. Claire went back to base the next day. She didn't look back at the house as the taxi pulled away. Could a White House moment finally change their view? Her second deployment came quickly. Intelligence briefings painted a darker picture this time. Increased enemy activity, limited air support. Before boarding the plane, she called home once more. Not out of hope, just habit. "I just wanted to talk." She said, "We're heading somewhere unstable. Try not to be reckless." Her father said, "You don't have to prove anything to anyone." "I'm not trying to," Claire replied softly. They talked about Nathan's engagement party again. When she hung up, she knew she was truly on her own. That night, she wrote a letter to herself, one to be opened if she didn't make it back. "You chose this path," she wrote. "You walked it when no one else believed in it. Whatever happens, your worth isn't measured by their understanding." 6 months into that deployment, everything changed again. Her commanding officer quietly nominated her for a transfer. Based on her cool head under fire, her judgment, her discipline, she passed the assessments: psychological, physical, tactical. She was selected for a special operations medical team. It wasn't just medicine anymore. It was small teams, black ops, night raids, no room for error. She trained until her muscles shook, rehearsed field surgeries in moving vehicles, learned how to operate while sleep-deprived and under radio silence, and she thrived. No one on that team cared about her background. No one asked about Nathan. They only cared whether she could keep a soldier alive when everything went wrong. One night, the call came. 3 American aid workers had been taken hostage in the mountains. Intelligence said they'd be moved and executed within 48 hours. Her team of 12 geared up. Claire was the only medic. The mission was high risk. The target was remote. Extraction would be tight. They flew in under cover of darkness. But 20 minutes out, ground fire hit the lead chopper. The pilot, Major Dana Whitaker, fought for control, but the hydraulics were gone. They crashed hard. Smoke filled the cabin. Claire's head slammed against the interior wall. When her vision cleared, she heard screams. She moved. Lieutenant Eric Lim had a compound fracture, bone jutting out from the arm. Major Whitaker had a head wound, bleeding heavily. Claire stabilized both, all while bullets whistled nearby. They couldn't get picked up. The second chopper couldn't land. "We're surrounded." Captain Sean Mercer shouted, "Hostiles incoming! Dig in!" Claire dragged the wounded behind cover. Then Specialist Luis Moreno was shot through the thigh. She crawled to him through dirt and flying shrapnel, applied pressure, tied a tourniquet with her teeth clenched. For 4 hours, they held their position. Claire kept the injured alive inch by inch. When Master Sergeant Troy Beckett's lung collapsed, she performed an emergency decompression using a flashlight and needle. Then Mercer called out, "We need airstrike coordinates. Donnelly, you've got the only sight line." She crawled into the open, took a bullet graze to the helmet, called in the strike. The jets came. Fire rained down. They bought time, but not much. When enemy fighters flanked their left side, a grenade exploded near Claire. Shrapnel tore through her leg, but she didn't stop. Sergeant Dylan Rhee was down, chest wounds sucking air. Claire dragged him to cover, sealed the wound, started fluids, sat over him as rounds pelted nearby. "You've got kids," she whispered, "so fight." By noon, they were nearly out of ammo. Mercer made the call, split the team. Claire would lead the wounded east. The rest would draw attention. She fashioned makeshift stretchers, hobbled forward with her own blood soaking her boot. Through the night, they moved, hid, waited, moved again. After 48 hours, they reached the ridge. The helicopter arrived. Claire finally let herself feel the pain. Her leg was torn, but intact. She kept 4 people alive, but the hostages were still out there. What she didn't know, what no one knew yet, was that the intel she had transmitted during those hours would lead to something far bigger, something that would change everything, not just for the mission, but for Claire Donnelly forever. Could a presidential honor rewrite her family's judgment? Claire's injury took her off the line. The shrapnel in her leg tore muscle, but missed bone and arteries. It could have been worse. She didn't complain. She couldn't. Not when Sergeant Rhee didn't make it. Not when 3 others were still in ICU. Back at the field hospital, doctors stabilized her, patched her leg, and sent her stateside for rehab. She landed at Fort Liberty's Warrior Recovery Center. Her body healing faster than her mind. The nightmares didn't wait. Every night brought flashes of the valley, smoke in her lungs, the weight of blood-soaked stretchers. She didn't speak of it. The mission was classified. Officially, it didn't happen. Even with therapists, all she could say was, "I can't discuss the details." Then she'd stare at the wall, willing the images to leave her alone. Her family never asked. When she called home, her mother sounded mildly inconvenienced. Her father asked whether the injury would affect her contract. A leg wound. He said, "Maybe this is a sign to pursue something more stable." Claire didn't argue. She didn't have the energy. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that the mission wasn't over. Weeks after she returned stateside, the intelligence she had relayed from that ridgeline helped locate the hostages. A follow-up raid was launched. All 3 original targets were rescued. So were 24 others. A hidden compound had been uncovered, one used for interrogations and propaganda videos. And Claire's coordinates, her numbers, her voice on the radio had made the difference. But it wasn't in the news. It was never meant to be. A commendation was quietly placed in her file. A Purple Heart arrived in the mail. No fanfare, no press. 3 months into rehab, she was granted a brief medical leave. She considered skipping the visit home, but guilt still pulled at her. She showed up in uniform, Purple Heart pinned on her chest. Her arrival surprised them. They'd forgotten the date. A dinner had already been planned for Nathan and his fiancée. Claire was told she could join if she didn't mind. She didn't mind, but the silence did. Throughout the meal, talk of Nathan's cases, his wedding venue, and his honeymoon itinerary filled the air. Claire sat politely, invisible in the corner of her own family. When Nathan's fiancée asked about Claire's ribbons, her mother waved a hand. She got those during some kind of training. "You know how the military is, medals for everything?" Claire kept her voice level. "The Purple Heart is for being wounded in combat." Nathan snorted. "You probably tripped on a tense stake, and something broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a line crossed." "I was wounded during a firefight," Claire said, "while keeping 4 injured teammates alive. One of them died in my arms." The room fell silent. Her father cleared his throat. "If you'd gone to medical school like we planned, You could have been saving lives in a hospital. Respectably. Respectably, Claire repeated. You think I'm playing war? No one said that. Her mother tried, but the damage was done. I've written letters to parents, Claire said, telling them their child died bravely. I've held pressure on wounds while bullets hit the ground around me. You never even asked what I do. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. We just worry you're wasting your potential, her mother said. Do you even tell people what I do? Claire asked. Or do you say I'm in logistics, administrative work? The pause answered her. You've always been the disappointment, her father said finally. The military was your escape, not your calling. Claire didn't reply. She stood, straightened her jacket, and walked out. In the hotel room she checked into an hour later, she broke down. For the first time in years, she let herself sob. Staff Sergeant Haley Monroe's called her that night. When Claire couldn't get words out, Monroe said, "Text me the address. I'm coming." 2 hours later, she arrived with takeout and a hoodie, sat beside Claire in silence until the tears passed. Your worth isn't defined by people who refuse to see you, she said. It's defined by the lives you've saved, the people who trust you in hell. When leave ended, Claire returned to Fort Liberty. She submitted a transfer request, not to run, just to breathe. Walter Reed, now Fort Liberty's Warrior Recovery Center, needed experienced medics. Claire was accepted into a new role. She became the bridge between battlefield trauma and recovery. She helped other wounded soldiers learn to walk again, learn to trust their own bodies, learn to sleep. She wasn't just patching them up, she was building them back. Captain Andre Wells, a double amputee, once told her, "You understand what this pain means, not just the science of it, the reality of it." Her ideas changed protocols. She designed therapy sessions that combined medical treatment with group storytelling. Her unit's recovery rates improved by 15%. Colonel Rachel Stein noticed, "Whatever you're doing," she said during a review, "it's working. Keep doing it." What Claire didn't know was that others had also noticed. Captain Mercer had written a full report about the mission, every detail, and that report had climbed. One morning, 6 months after the crash, Claire received a formal call. A voice she didn't recognize said, "Sergeant Donnelly, please report to the office of the Secretary of the Army. Dress uniform required." She barely slept that night. Was it a disciplinary review? A mistake in the intel chain? The next morning, she arrived at the Pentagon. Nerves knotted. A general waited. Beside him stood a civilian in a dark suit. "Sergeant Donnelly," the general said. "I'm General Malcolm Bryce. This is Mr. Calvin Reed from the White House Military Office." Claire sat straighter. "Your actions during Operation Silent Retrieval have been reviewed at the highest levels," Reed said. "Due to the classified nature, recognition was delayed. That delay is being corrected." Bryce slid a folder across the desk. "You're being awarded the Distinguished Service Cross," he said. "The President will present it himself next week." Claire stared at the words. "There's been a mistake," she said. "I was doing my job." "No mistake," the general replied. "The intel you provided led directly to the rescue of 27 hostages and stopped 3 planned attacks. You also saved 15 lives in direct care. This is the second highest honor the Army can give." Mr. Reed added, "The President personally requested that your award be part of a declassified ceremony." Claire left the building in stunned silence. That night, she drafted a short message. "I'm receiving the Distinguished Service Cross from the President next Thursday at 2 p.m. You're welcome to attend if you'd like." She sent it to her parents and waited. Hours later, her mother replied, "We'll check our schedules. Your father may have a faculty meeting." Claire read it twice, then laughed. Not bitter, just tired. A faculty meeting might conflict with the President of the United States honoring their daughter for valor. Eventually, they confirmed they'd come. Nathan, too. On the day of the ceremony, Washington bloomed with early spring. Claire's dress uniform was flawless, every medal polished. 3 other recipients stood beside her. One had lost a leg, another had pulled a pilot from burning wreckage. In the East Room of the White House, rows of chairs were filled. Claire's family sat in the back, stiff and underdressed in the sea of uniforms. One by one, each citation was read. Claire stood straight when her name was called. The room stilled. Sergeant Claire Donnelly distinguished herself by exceptionally valorous conduct while serving as a combat medic with Special Operations Task Force Dagger. The aide read, "Her family sat frozen." While wounded, she provided critical care to multiple casualties under direct enemy fire. The intelligence she transmitted led to the rescue of 27 hostages and the disruption of multiple enemy plots on U.S. soil. The president stepped forward. He placed the medal around her neck and spoke quietly. "My brother was one of those hostages," he said. "My family owes you more than we can repay." Claire blinked, stunned. Then he raised his voice for the room. She didn't just save her team. She made possible the rescue of innocent Americans. She helped prevent further bloodshed. Her actions embody what this uniform means. He offered a salute. Claire returned it. The applause that followed was thunderous. Her family didn't move. They were no longer the storytellers. They were spectators, and for the first time, they saw her. 6 months after the ceremony at the White House, Claire settled into her new role as an instructor at the Army Medical Department Center. The Distinguished Service Cross opened doors certainly, but it was her experience, not her medal, that earned respect in the classroom. She taught future combat medics what she had once learned in chaos. Not just techniques, but timing. Not just procedure, but poise. She demonstrated how to find a vein under stress, how to pack a wound in the dark, how to whisper to someone dying so they stay just long enough. Her voice carried weight, not because of rank, but because of memory. The students listened differently when she spoke, not just as soldiers, but as people who knew they might one day owe their lives to someone like her. And yet, the part of Claire that still remembered her family's silence, their years of dismissal and absence, hadn't vanished. Recognition didn't erase wounds, it only gave them names. 3 weeks after the ceremony, her father showed up at her apartment in Fayetteville, unannounced. No blazer, no tie, just a man holding awkwardness in both hands. "I'd like to see the place," he said quietly, "where you work, if you're willing." Claire didn't answer right away, but she let him in. That day, she walked him through the facility, showed him the training bays, the medical simulators, the trauma response labs. He asked questions, and more surprising, he listened. When a senior officer paused mid-exercise to greet Claire with a sharp salute and a warm, "Good to see you, Sergeant," her father blinked. Something shifted in his posture. "I've been arrogant," he admitted over dinner. "I measured success in a way that left no room for your path." He didn't apologize for the past, not directly, but it was enough for now. Claire's mother followed in smaller steps. At first, awkward phone calls, then carefully packed boxes with snacks, hand lotion, socks, things Claire would have killed for during her first deployment. Inside one package, Claire found an old black and white photo of her grandfather in uniform. Beside it, his medals. They'd never been displayed before. "Your grandfather would have been proud of you." The note read, "I should have said that sooner." Claire placed the medals in her drawer. She didn't hang them, but she kept them close. Nathan changed too, though not overnight. He started volunteering with a legal aid group for veterans, helping them navigate benefits and disability claims. "Thought I'd understand your world a little better," he said once during a call. Turns out it's more complicated than I imagined. Claire didn't say thank you. She just nodded, and he didn't press for more. A few months later, during a visit home, they all agreed, hesitantly, to a family therapy session. In that quiet office with neutral walls and soft chairs, Claire finally heard her mother say the one thing she'd long needed. "I was terrified," her mother whispered. "From the day you enlisted, I lived in fear. Every news headline, every missed call. I couldn't face the thought of losing you, so I pretended you weren't in danger." Claire's jaw tightened. "But I was." "I know," her mother replied, tears welling. "And I'm sorry for choosing comfort over courage." Her father spoke next, voice steady but raw. "My own." Father came back from the war, changed. I saw what it did to him. "When you enlisted, all I could think was, I failed to keep you safe from that." Claire didn't say much, but something eased in her shoulders. They were still far from close, but now they weren't pretending. That Thanksgiving, Claire returned to West Hartford for the first time in years. The house looked the same, but inside, something had softened. There were photos of Nathan's wedding, of course. Degrees still lined the hallway, but in the living room next to them was a new shadow box. Inside, the photo from the White House ceremony, the Distinguished Service Cross, and a small map showing Claire's deployments. Her mother noticed her looking. "I know it doesn't fix everything," she said, "but I wanted you to know. I see you now." Claire didn't cry, but she touched the glass gently, like closing a door behind her. That night, she helped her father find a book in his study. While searching through the drawers, she found something odd, a recruitment brochure, Army Medical Corps. It was old, 1970s, but the handwriting was unmistakably his. "You were going to join?" Claire asked. He looked down, quiet for a beat. "I almost did," he said. "Had the paperwork signed, passed the physical. What stopped you?" "My father, he talked me out of it. Said no more Donnelly men needed to bleed for this country. He'd seen enough." Claire nodded slowly. "I think I was hard on you," he added, "because you did something I didn't have the courage to do." That night's dinner was different. Her mother invited both old friends from the university and some of Claire's fellow soldiers from Fort Liberty. They sat at the same table, people who once never would have crossed paths. Her father introduced her to a visiting professor. "My daughter," he said proudly, "one of only 16 to receive the Distinguished Service Cross during the global war on terror." After dessert, her mother brought out a quiet surprise, a second shadow box, smaller, inside news clippings, photos, and a single sentence embroidered in thread. Her worth was never defined by who noticed her, but by who survived because she showed up. Claire didn't speak. She didn't need to. Back at the Army Medical Center, Claire continued shaping the next generation. One afternoon, a new recruit stayed behind after class, nervous, young, determined. "Sergeant Donnelly," she said, voice small. "I joined because of you. I saw the story about the White House. I want to help people the way you do." Claire offered a quiet smile. "The medals don't make the medic," she replied. "It's showing up when it matters. It's doing your job when no one's watching. It's running toward the sound, not away." The girl nodded, eyes wide. As she left, Claire turned toward the empty classroom. For a moment she stood still and realized something. The president's words had changed how others saw her. The medal had shifted how her family spoke. But long before the ceremony, long before the applause, Claire Donnelly had already saved herself, subscribed to graceful valor stories, where quiet strength is celebrated and every hero's story finds a voice,